Hello and welcome to HMG Network, broadcasting live from the greater Washington, D.C. metropolitan. My name is Freeman Singirankabo, and this is another edition on our stories, untold stories from Rwanda. Today's discussion is going to be talking about discrimination post a Rwandan genocide. I think we have some feedback, my apologies. And today is, okay, I think we're good. And today's moderator is going to be Claude Gatebuke, who is the executive director of African Great Lakes Action Network. Claude Gatebuke, can you hear me?
All right. Yes, Freeman, thank you for providing the platform again. I'm grateful to HMG Studio.
Welcome, brother. My apologies that we're running a little bit late, but I want you to go ahead and take it off. Let's get talking. Welcome, guys.
Alrighty. So before we get started, I just want to give a little bit of background on what we're going to talk about today. Our conversation is about our stories, what we survived, our resilience, and the focus today. I know that most people who know and hear about Rwanda, you hear about it you've probably just watched the film Hotel Rwanda, which was made about a man named Paul Rusesabagina. Paul Rusesabagina is a hotel manager who sheltered over 1,200 people. And today, on this day, 6 months ago, he was kidnapped from Dubai and taken to Rwanda, and today is facing trial. Yesterday, the Minister of Justice in Rwanda, Johnston Busingye, admitted that they trapped Mr. Rusesabagina. Also, by the way, court documents from the Rwanda Investigative Board itself show that they actually trapped him, and they started last February. So about a year ago, they started trying to trap him. They trapped him 6 months ago. And so that is your introduction to Rwanda today. Most people, when they hear about Rwanda, it's either about the genocide or the film Hotel Rwanda, or some people know about Rwanda having been a very reconciled country that's done well after a brutal genocide. And today, we want to share untold stories from Rwanda post-genocide. The three of us who are in this conversation were children when the genocide happened. And what we want to share is our testimonies. How did we experience? The focus today is discrimination in post-genocide Rwanda. And then we'll talk about our resilience, our hopes, and the things that we've done, what we've overcome, and how we've decided to use our traumatic experiences to actually make the world a better place. So without further ado, I would like to invite my fellow my colleagues, my friends, Delphine and JP, to introduce themselves to you guys so we can continue this conversation. Delphine.
Thank you, Claude, for the introduction, and thank you. I'm really happy to be here with you guys to have this talk with you and with JP. So my name is Delphine Yandamuto, and as Claude introduced myself, I was born in Rwanda as well, and now I'm based in Australia. So we're looking forward to sharing our stories, and I'm so grateful as well for the HMG Studio for giving us this opportunity to tell our stories. I guess we've been holding back for so long, but this is our time to tell our stories. So I'm grateful for this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Delphine. And I would like to invite JP to also introduce yourself to the audience, and looking forward to this conversation with some friends and sharing with the world what they actually don't know. So, JP.
Thank you ever so much, Claude Gatebuke. But before I actually thank you first and foremost, I'd like to give a big thank you to Freeman, who actually give us this platform so that we can actually express ourselves and have this platform as a Rwandese to kind of share our experiences, and at the same time try to bring this to the surface so that we can start and also show other people that we can actually reach the healing of memories that we have Thank you, guys. Thank you. I'm happy to be with you.
All right. So that I want to ask everybody in the audience and everybody on social media to share this. Looks like we might be having a glitch in the studio. With it looks like there is a screen showing. If you can bear with us for a second. Okay, it looks like everything is clear. We would like to ask you to go ahead and please share the links with your networks so that more people can continue joining this conversation. So just a little bit of background, all three of us as children, when the genocide ended in Rwanda, we actually all three fled to the Congo. And all three of us took a different route out of the Congo. We're gonna share that to start with. So mine is gonna be really brief. When we left Rwanda, we were being bombed. We were being bombed by the RPF, which is the Rwandan Patriotic Front, the Tutsi military rebel group that was led by Paul Kagame, who is now the president of Rwanda. And this is, again, the man that is known as a progressive president, a Pan-African, but based on my own experiences, he's not. You know, he's destroyed a lot of Rwandans. You know, like I said, we were being bombed and shot. We crossed into the Congo. We stayed in some really, really horrible conditions. The sanitary conditions were terrible. There was a cholera outbreak. We got really sick from drinking water from the lake. The lake was the only thing where we had drinking, cooking, and bathing water, and there was animals in that lake, and I mean, all kinds of things, and we all got sick. But for me, after some time, we were rescued out of Congo and taken to Uganda by American aid workers, and then from Uganda, ended up in Kenya, and then came to the US. So that's my first lap, unless JP and Delphine, you know, want me to elaborate on anything. I would like to hand it to you guys so you can also share a little bit of your testimony on how did you get out of Congo? What happened, you know, when you fled the genocide in Rwanda, the war in Rwanda, went to Congo, and then how did you actually, because the world does not know these kind of stories. All they know is there was a genocide in Rwanda, and it lasted 3 months. And Paul Kagame is the hero of the genocide, which, again, personally, I don't believe he is. I think he was one of the he was one of the perpetrators. But you guys have your own stories, and I would like to hand it to you, Delphine, to share a little bit about how did you get out?
Okay, thank you, Claude, for for sharing your story as well, and thank you again for this opportunity to talk about our stories. So I guess without going back for about the genocide in 1994, I was 9, and when we moved. My family and I were living in Kigali, and we had to move. I guess moving from Kigali to through across the country to Congo is a long story, but I probably won't go much into it. So anyway, we moved from Kigali through bombs, through shooting, through killings, through everything that most Rwandans went through. And, we moved from, we went through, I believe, Gitarama. We said a little bit. Gitarama is in, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's towards south now. South.
No.
Yeah. And then we stayed there for a little bit, and we moved. We went to north, through Gisenyi, and we ended up in Goma. And in Goma, I don't know. I've shared my story sometimes, but sometimes you don't know because it's such a long journey. It's such a long, characterized with so many things. So I will try to summarize. Otherwise, we'll be here for I don't know how long. But when we stayed in Goma for a little bit with my family, the experience there was horrific. And from where I was, it was sort of okay because we've been able to be sheltered in some like religious house. So my family was sheltered but we could see outside of Goma what was happening. There were so many people, so many dead, like lots of dead bodies, and there was something that some people called like a viral infection or poison or whatever it was, but there was a lot of dead bodies on the street, like literally piled or lined on the street. So we stayed inside for most of the time, and only adults would get out, obviously, to check what's going on. And from Goma, we went through. I wouldn't tell where, like what areas. I don't remember the names, but I know that we ended up in Rutshuru. In Rutshuru is a little bit further from Goma, and we stayed in a sort of not in the camps. So then we were not in camps yet. We were living with the Congolese. We were sort of in a community. And we stayed there for some time until the Rwandan government did some, I don't know, negotiations or convinced the Congolese government that absolutely every Rwandan refugee had to go in refugee camps. We didn't know what was happening, but eventually we know why. This because they wanted to obviously invade them and to kill everyone. And so people resisted a little bit, but all of us ended up in camps, and we ended up in Katale camp. So people who've been there, they would know Katale camp. That's where we stayed for. That's where we were living. And in 1996, when the RPA army invaded the camps or attacked the camps, that's how we got out of Congo. I think Claude was asking, how did you get out of Congo? So that was the beginning of the journey out of Congo, which was not short, because from the camps, I don't know how much you want me to elaborate, but I will probably talk about just the beginning of the bombing of the camps, because that scene, I guess, the image, is stuck in my head somehow. So I remember it was in the middle of the night, and the bombing or the shooting, we didn't know where it was coming from, because it was a little bit confusing, as if it was sort of around, like surrounding us. And as a child, then it was sort of chaotic in my head. Everything was, running. It was a lot of movements, lots of people. Like people didn't know what to do. Like it came out of nowhere, and people wondering what to take or where to take, what direction, because literally the shooting was coming from literally everywhere, like surrounding us. So I guess from that night, that's when we started the journey through, coming back to from Congo. And from the camps, we went to forests. Like I wouldn't tell if we went left or right, but we went sort of further away from the shooting, away from the bullets. And we ended up in a forest. As a child, I remember like those like really, really, really tall trees, and like a scary place. But that was our journey. That's the journey we took through, that forest. I wouldn't remember how long we stayed there, but it felt like it was ages. It took ages, and we sort of circled back and forth. And the journey was not easy, because some of the highlights, some of the things that I remember is that people were so thirsty, because when we got out of the camps, no one thought about taking water. No one knew how long it was going to take. No one thought about taking food. Only a few people had, bits and pieces. So I remember people were so thirsty. People were so tired. And as a child, I was all of the above. I was so tired and scared, and it was terrific. And one of the things that I remember is that I guess as I got to maybe the second or third day, people are working through the jungle. I mean, if I may call it a jungle, when people got thirsty, I remember there are some trees, and they would cut them they would like squeeze out water because people were so thirsty. Like literally, they would like chew. There's a tree. I don't know what type of tree it is, but it was sort of it had water in it, so people would chew that, or to stay hydrated. So that's some of the highlights. People were so hungry, people were tired, but we kept going. So through that journey, everyone took different directions. Like there was no map, there was nothing to sort of guide you through this least way. But in the end, people could see that Congolese will tell you, like, we've seen, there's NGOs, or there's people who are going back. Like there was a lot of information, but as a child, again, I didn't get a lot of information. So the adults were trying to protect us for us not to see a lot of what was going on. But I remember that it took ages for us to go through that forest. And in the end, some like Congolese people told us that, you can take that journey, that they will tell you, like, there's some people who are going home to Rwanda, and there was NGOs that, were taking people back. So that's how we got out of Congo. I don't know, Claude, how much you want. I don't know if there's any area you want, because you've heard my story before. If there's an area that you want me to, clarify, or
I think, Delphine, I think it would be good if you shared. Yeah, I should have told the audience that I've heard the stories, both of y'all. So I'm not going to pretend I don't know your stories, but I think it would be good if you shared, like, what actually happened with your family, as a child, so that people who have children can put themselves in both your parents' shoes and their children's shoes. And also, I know that I wanted to clarify. I know you talked about the RPA, coming into the camps. This is a historical event, and what happened was in 1996, the Rwandan army invaded the Congo, and they went into the camps and destroyed those camps where people were living. And the people who were living there were families with children and women and old people and young people and disabled and all kinds of people. And they surrounded them and burnt them. And that's how you fled. And I'm assuming that, JP is gonna, share some of that. But I just wanted to kind of describe the scene. I know you talked about the piled up bodies on the side of the street. I remember those. I remember how they stunk. I mean, the place stunk really bad. But I just want to connect with the people in terms of like family, just a little bit.
Sorry. Okay, thank you, Claude. So I was born in a family of 4. I was number 3. And so when we got out of when the camps were bombed, so obviously everyone went their different ways, but we were together. Sort of, we were on and off, like together at times, and then we'll miss each other, and then we'll sort of find each other again. But I guess halfway through, so like through all that journey, we lost my older brother. So like, because he was a little bit older, he would go with other people to sort of help, like parents, or like everyone was going different directions. But in the end, by the time we got out of Congo, we had lost my older brother. Even now, we didn't know what happened to him, if he made it or not. So, and also by the time we got out of Congo, we had